What is up, guys? This is QRAM from the Trinity of Lift, and today I'm going to bring all of you guys my ABC deck profile for the September 2016 format. Now then, this deck is here in the TCG finally, and let me just say that I am very happy that this deck is here finally, primarily because it's kind of a nostalgia deck for me, believe it or not, because back when I was a small kid, probably my favorite, I guess, archetype, you could say, if you could call it that back then, was the XYZ Dragon Cannon deck. And I did have a deck of that card and trying to center around the XA Cannon, the Y Dragon Head, and the Z Metal Tank. I think that's what they're called. I had a deck when I was small, for the gist of it. I had that deck when I was small, and I just tried to make it work back when I was like, what, 7 or so? And yeah, to see Unions come back into 2016 is pretty cool. So that is why I decided to make this deck, of course. And also, it's pretty good that it's going to be a really strong meta deck as well. So without further ado, we're just going to jump right into it, starting off with the main deck as per usual. So yeah, this is not the Galaxy Soldier build, I should say, first of all. This is the rank 4 build because I felt like the Galaxy deck, for this deck anyway, was rather bad because it would make you run really bad cards to make other bad-ish cards good. So because of that, I just decided to not run it. So yeah, without further ado, we have 3 copies of Assault Corps because this is an ABC deck. We need 3 copies of this card. Then we have 3 copies of Buster Drake because this is an ABC deck. We need 3 copies of this card. And then finally, we have 3 copies of Crush Wyvern because, well, if you could guess it, this is an ABC deck. We need 3 of this card. So, yeah. That'll be it for all of the alphabet monsters. Moving on to all of the rank 4 enablers now. I have 3 copies of the Silver Gadget. I have 3 copies of the Gold Gadget. And then, of course, we have 3 copies of Full-Time Thrasher. Now, I feel like maxing out on these rank 4 enablers is probably going to be the best way to play this deck. Primarily because you really want to see at least one of these cards in every single one of your opening hands, because there is a combo in this deck, if you guys haven't been playtesting this deck before, that involves Bujinte Tsukuyomi, and the combo is always going to end with you having the field spell, the Bujinte Tsukuyomi, and your Dragon Buster, plus some other cards that you might have drawn. Now, again, you really just always want to try and establish your Dragon Buster on your first turn every single game if you possibly can, because your boss monster is just that freaking good, where if you can just make it every turn 1, you should just almost win every single game, almost, as long as they're not maining Gamasiel or something dumb. But again, in order to do that, you usually will be needing at least one of these cards in order to make your Dragon Buster on your first turn. So because of that, I feel like you just want to try and consistently get out your boss monster as often as you can. So maxing out on these guys is just a no-brainer in my opinion. So yeah, that's just me. I understand people are cutting the gadgets down to 2 each, but again, because of how I wanted to play this deck, I really did feel like maxing out was probably going to be the way to go. So yeah. Moving on, for the final 2 monsters in the deck, we have 2 copies of Max C, because this card is just really, really good this format. There is not a single matchup, in my opinion, where this card is bad. So, because of that, just having Max C's in here for just free blank cards is pretty nice. So, yeah. Moving on to the spell lineup, we of course have the field spell. We have 3 copies of Union Hanger. This card is broken. The fact that it's a field spell that is searchable off of Terraforming, that's also a +2, is pretty stupid. Like for real, like Konami's like going on an upward trends of field spells recently, where they're just making a ton of really, really strong field spells, and this is just no exception. And again, in my opinion, I'm pretty much saying this in almost every one of my deck profiles recently, but in my opinion, this is probably going to be the best field spell in the format right now. So yeah, we have 3 copies of Union Hanger. Then, of course, we also have 3 copies of Terraforming because we want to search out our broken +2 card. Then, I'm also running 3 copies of Pot of Desires. This card, well, first of all, I'm finally not a scrub and I finally have my playset. But the point is, I'm really conflicted over running 3 copies of this card. Like, I've been testing 2 copies and 3 copies, and I've been going back and forth between the 2 for quite a while already. Because Pot of Desires is, of course, a really, really good card, especially if you can already establish your Dragon Buster. Just getting extra cards in hand from the Desires is really good because, again, it just gives you more ammo for your boss monster. But the thing is, I get it. Like, drawing multiple of this card sucks, and running 3 copies of it just does maximize the chance of you drawing at least 2 or 3 copies. God forbid 3 copies. It just maximizes the chance of drawing multiples in your first turn hand. And that is something really bad, especially because this deck kind of does need your hand to be rather optimal in order for your hand to be really, really good. And I don't know, like, I understand this card is great, but I probably just have to test it more to figure out if I really do like 3 copies of Pot of Desires, but I just decided to stick it in here at 3 for now, because in theory it's good, because all of your good cards that you want to use are all at 3 in this deck, so because of that, the banishing cost is rather irrelevant, but I don't know, like, this card is good, but I gotta probably test a little bit more to just figure out what my final ratio on this card would be. So yeah, we have 3 copies of Desires. Then we have 2 copies of Twin Twister because we don't like back row. And especially in this deck, you really don't want to get Solemn Strike because if your Dragon Buster gets striked, you're going to be really far behind because making a Dragon Buster might be for free, but it also encompasses that you're banishing your resources in order to make the Dragon Buster, and if Dragon Buster gets stopped without being able to tag out, you do actually lose quite a bit of resources that you might not realize that you lost until it's too late. So because of that, you really want to have Twin Twister in here because it does play on Solemn Strike and Solemn Warning and all that kind of good stuff. So yeah. Finally, for the last couple of spells, we have one-ofs. We have 1 copy of Road-Of to search out Photon Thrasher. We have 1 copy of Instant Fusion because we have this card in the TCG. We can play Norden, which is something that OCG actually doesn't have. So in my opinion, we have the better ABC deck comparatively. But yeah, we have 1 copy of Instant Fusion. We have 1 copy of Book of Eclipse. Now, I wanted to make this specifically before the mirror match because this is a really good card in there. And I wanted to make this over Gamasiel because, again, you will be going into Bujite Tsukuyomi pretty much almost every game in this deck. And while you can set Book of Eclipse because it is a spell... it is a spell card. You can't set Gamasiel because, well, it's a monster. So because of that, I did decide to main Book of Eclipse over Gamasiel. And then finally, for the last spell, we of course have the 1 copy of Upstart Goblin because 39 card consistency and stuff. So yeah, that'll be it for the entire spell lineup. Moving on to the traps, we of course have 3 copies of Solemn Strike because backing up a Buster Dragon with Solemn Strike is pretty broken, so yeah. Then we have 1 copy of Solemn Warning because the same reason as Solemn Strike. If you can back up your boss monster with this card, you kind of win. And then finally for the last trap, like similarly to all the other traps, we have 1 copy of Emptiness because if you can make your Dragon Buster and set Emptiness behind it, yeah, you kind of win. So yeah, that'll be it for the entire 40 card main deck. Moving on to the extra deck. Of course, we have the man himself. We have 3 copies of the ABC Dragon Buster. Now, god damn it, this card is freaking insane. Like, this card is stupid broken. Like, god. Why does Konami think that it's fine to print broken cards like this? Jesus Christ, it's broken. Like, I don't know what to say. If you guys can just read the card for a moment, you guys will realize why the heck this card is freaking insane. Like, holy shit. I don't swear too much on the channel, but god damn it, holy shit, this card is freaking insane. Jesus. Yeah, this card is freaking broken. Like, I also kind of want to be a degenerate, not gonna lie, and I want to get 1 extra copy of this card to make a token out of it because I love this card so much, but I don't know, this card is freaking stupid. Like, Jesus, it's freaking broken. Like, that's all I can say. Yeah. And then for the other fusion, we of course have 1 copy of Norden because, you know, instant fusion and stuff. Moving on to the other monsters in our extra deck, we have 1 copy of Bujite Tsukuyomi because, again, you need this for specific combos, and you always need to make this guy basically to make your Dragon Buster turn 1. So, again, we have to have 1 copy of this guy. You don't really need 2. I was thinking about including a second copy, but, again, you really don't need more copies than 1. Because, again, after you make your Dragon Buster, you're kind of in a winning position already where you don't need the second copy. So that's why 1 is probably the correct number. We have 2 copies of Diamond Dire because this is, like, the best rank 4 in the game, technically. And the fact that you can use it to just pop back row for free and keep your alphabet monsters in the graveyard to make your Dragon Buster again is really, really strong. So again, 2 copies of Direwolf is probably going to be the standard going forward for all of the ABC decks. We have 1 copy of the Augusto Emerald for those grindy situations where you actually have to recycle your Buster Dragons. And believe me, there are going to be times if, like, for example, you're playing through like back row decks where you actually do need like more than 3 copies of Dragon Buster, and that's where the Augusto Emerald comes in, because the fact that Dragon Buster attributes itself to tag out rather than like what the Ritual Beast did previously, where they go back to the extra deck, actually is pretty good because it helps you recycle the Dragon Busters with the Augusto Emerald in the end. So again, that's pretty nice. Then we also have 1 copy of Gear X because you can make it in this deck, and just being able to search out your gadgets is pretty nice. Then we have 1 copy of Castel for spot removal. We have 1 copy of this blah, 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 blah. If I can speak properly, we have 1 copy of Abyss Dweller because we don't like Burning Abyss, Phantom Knights, and whatever else graveyard decks there are. We have the Utopias because punching over stuff is important. We have 1 copy of number 80 because this is actually really good in the mirror match in my opinion. Like, if you can out their Dragon Buster first, then make him tag out or something at least, then kill all of their ABCs and then banish it with Rhapsody, yeah, that's a really good play. And then finally we have 1 copy of Traptrix Rafflesia. Now, I say Rafflesia very loosely because this is actually just a placeholder for a giant hand. Of course, this is not the card that I'd run over Giant Hand, because in my opinion, Giant Hand is a lot better, especially in the mirror match. Because if you make Giant Hand turn 1 alongside your Dragon Buster or something, it's really good because you can stop your opponent's gadgets from going off, which again is really important. So again, just remember that Rafflesia is a placeholder. This is not actually Rafflesia. This is a number 106 Giant Hand. So yeah. That'll be it for this entire deck profile of my ABC deck, and I know I kind of went through this deck profile rather fast because, in my opinion, if you've seen one ABC deck profile, you've kind of seen them all because there isn't a lot of variety between the decks. Although, again, I am kind of saying this as like a preface sort of, because I do like this deck, and this is probably going to be the build of ABCs that I'm going to be playing moving forward. But at the same time, I am going to be trying to play a couple of different variants of this deck, because I know you can actually play Karakuris in this deck, which is something pretty cool, and I want to try and make a Karakuri deck again. And you can also run Brilliant Fusion in this deck, because the whole deck is a light. So yeah, I will be testing out some other cool versions of the deck in the near future. But for now, I just wanted to give you guys a good baseline build of ABCs to go forward with. So yeah. As always, I hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, this is Qrem from the Trinity of Lift, and I'll see all of you guys later. Peace out.